Hi, good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue. It is a program for, incisive analysis and riveting conversation. My name is Selorm Adonoo. We call it the Election Bureau. Last week around this time, we were preparing. In fact, the election had started and reporters were all over the country reporting and bringing you the news that mattered. We were at it throughout the night, the following day, till the results were declared. We even continued on the post-election analysis and had that concluded yesterday. This really indeed was your Election Bureau, and we are happy to come your way this morning in continuation of matters that have happened after the election. Now, that election was a shellacking. Many people saw the change coming, but many did not see it in the magnitude it came. We will look at that today. We will look at the post-mortem of that election. There's been some issues of recollation of some constituency results, the legality or otherwise of that, and indeed some post-election violence. There's been accusations and counter-accusations about the real source of those post-election violence. People say that it's supporters of the ruling party who were angry with their people because some goods were hoarded, goods supposed to be distributed to party people to help them go out to vote were hoarded, and so they broke into the warehouses to carry them. Others also say, no, it's NDC supporters who are just on rampage, behaving unlawfully, going about, beating people and looting things, trying to get people out of state offices, etc. We'll look at that, and the question is, must we continue with that? How long are we going to do it? It was an election, the people had spoken. Why won't we just allow the process to travel to its logical conclusion so that by January 7, we will have a change of power, which has been done on December 7. That change of power will take effect on January 7, 2025. So I want to know from you why you voted the way you did, or if you voted in at all. What are your expectations of the new government? Indeed, one document that has been viral in the past few days is President-elect John Mahamed's pledge to Ghanaians for the first 120 days. That document has become so popular, and is a document many people are watching closely to see if indeed the president-elect will stand by his pledge. We'll look at all of that this morning. Also, we have a transition team in place now. The transition team by law is to help with the seamless transfer of power from the outgoing administration to the new one. It's been going on smoothly, but one matter that we hear is splitting hairs at that place is what has become known as the last-minute recruitments into some state agencies. We saw a statement from the governing side, and we saw a statement also from the incoming government side, both saying similar things but very different things in respect of the last-minute recruitments. Whilst one side says that since government is a continuum and you are in office until January 7, and so nothing should stop your work, others think that it is not proper to be employing people in the numbers that we are seeing at this last minute, kind of questioning the motive of that. So that's what we have for you today. But today, actually, the show is yours. As always, I want to hear from you. Join the discussion via our WhatsApp line 020-444-7033, 020-444-7033, or 0549-986-996. We'll be happy to share your views with the rest of the world. Again, my name is Selorm Adonoo. I'll take a short break. I'll return, provide you some updates, introduce my guests, and then we'll have the discussion underway. Don't go away. All right, you're welcome back. This is a big issue. Two key issues on the table. Today's issues really are a post-mortem of last week's election. NDC secured some 56% against Dr. Bawumia's 41% or so. Quite a decisive victory for the NDC. And in terms of parliament, it was almost a clean sweep. NDC in excess of 180 seats, whilst MPP is hovering around 79 seats for now. Of course, a number of seats are yet to be declared. There are some issues with some of them, but it does appear that the NDC has, a huge majority, a majority that can help them do a lot of things. And indeed, President John Mahama has promised to use that majority responsibly, and we will hold him to that. Post-mortem of that, recollation of some results, and then there's been some post-election violence that has, subsided now. The security agencies have been called into it, but we will discuss all of that. Also, there's been the inauguration of the transition team in accordance with law. The incoming team has been complaining about some last-minute appointments. The governing side says it will look at that, but government is a continuum. Government doesn't end until when the Constitution says it ends, the midnight of 6th January, and all of that. We'll look at that and see how proper it is, or is it that such appointments are being made, if they are being made at all. And why should the government also wait for all this while before making appointments at this last minute? Indeed, we have seen a number of appointment letters flying about. Of course, we know some of them may not be genuine, but some of them have been proven to be genuine. We'll look at all of that in the context of today's discussion. Just to provide you some updates, former President John Dramani Mahama, as you may well know by now, has been declared winner of the 2024 presidential election, securing a remarkable return to the nation's highest office after a fierce contest. The announcement made by the Electoral Commission on Monday, December 9, confirmed Mahama's victory with some 6.3 million votes cast, representing 56.55% of the valid votes cast, defeating his primary rival, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia of the MPP, who garnered some 4.65 million votes, representing 41.61%. Mahama's victory also marked a significant achievement for his party, the National Democratic Congress, which won a majority in the Parliament of Ghana. The 2024 election saw a voter turnout of 60.9%, with the process largely peaceful, although there were some reports of isolated incidents of violence and logistical challenges in certain constituencies, including Damongo, Ablekuma Central, and Okankwe North. Here's Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jane Mensah, making that announcement.
A good evening to all of you, our distinguished guests. To God be all the glory, great things he has done, and greater things he will do. We thank the good Lord for making it possible for us to witness this day. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 48 hours since the close of polls on Saturday, the 7th of December, 2024. The voters of Ghana have spoken. They have expressed their choice at the polls, and that choice will today be upheld by the Electoral Commission of Ghana. As a commission, we have fulfilled our vowed aspiration to imbibe transparency, accountability, inclusiveness, and responsiveness at the heart of all our operations. And I can confidently say that with the help of God, we have fulfilled these aspirations and the expectations of the citizenry. We have conducted elections that are credible, fair, transparent, and peaceful. Elections that have ensured that the will of the people as expressed at the polls. The elections that have guaranteed that every vote counts. As a country, we take pride in the fact that our electoral processes, initiated since 1992, uphold and guarantee the voter's choice. We take pride in the fact that the voter's choice, as expressed at the polls, is sacrosanct. Ladies and gentlemen, the last 4 years have been spent in injecting and infusing 4 key elements into every aspect of our work. And those elements are transparency, accountability, responsiveness, and inclusiveness. As such, we started the year poised and ready to conduct credible elections. We were conscious that elections were an event and not a process. This resolve led us to undertake several transformational decisions including the re-exhibiting of the Provisional Voters Register for the first time in our history, when concerns were raised about its credibility, as well as opening up the IPAC meetings to the citizenry by allowing the live coverage of all IPAC meetings. Indeed, the decisions to re-exhibit the Provisional Voters Register to allow a further review by political parties and the citizenry, as well as the demystification of the IPAC meeting, has helped diffuse the tensions that were brewing around the Provisional Voters Register. Ultimately, those two decisions restored the confidence of the citizens in the Voters Register and cemented Ghana's peace. Again, in the spirit of responsiveness, when complaints were made about the 50 persons charged voters for the verification of their registration and undertake credible and transparent elections and electoral processes which uphold the voters' choice and lead to acceptable and peaceful electoral outcomes. Today, our resolve has paid off. We have conducted elections that are fair, elections that are free, elections that are credible, elections that are transparent, elections that are... Citizens testify to the seamless processes they witnessed at the polling stations. The average time spent at the polling station was around 5 minutes compared to several hours and several minutes prior to the 2020 election. Citizens also attested to the efficiency of the biometric voter devices, the biometric verification devices employed to ensure that every man has. To our media partners who have journeyed with us and enabled us to bring the commission to the doorstep. As the returning officer for the presidential election and in fulfillment of my mandate as enshrined in law, I will now declare the outcome of the 2024 election. It is important to note that per Regulation 63.3 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, the winner of the presidential election must obtain at least 50% plus 1 at the polls to be declared the winner of the election. We have collated the presidential results from all 16 administrative regions, of which 267 of the 276 constituencies have been captured. We have not been able to receive results from 9 constituencies because our offices have been besieged by political party supporters, making it impossible to complete the collation process. That notwithstanding, the presidential results from the 267 constituencies, including the newly created Guan constituency, clearly established the winner of the 2024 presidential election. Simply put, even if all the votes from the 9 constituencies were added to the candidate who placed second, it will not change the outcome of the election. It is important to note that the Commission will update the records on receipt of the presidential results from the 9 outstanding constituencies. Ladies and gentlemen, now to the results of the 2024 presidential election. And the results will be announced based on the positions of the presidential candidates on the ballot. Mahamadou Bawumia of the NPP obtained 4,657,304, being 41.61%. Daniel Augustus Latte Jr. of the GCPP obtained 16,673, being 0.15%. Christian Kwabena Andrews of the Ghana Union Movement obtained 16,461, being 0.15%. Kofi Apalu of the LPG obtained 5,219, being 0.09%. Mohamed Frimpong of the National Democratic Party obtained 4,413, being 0.04%. Nana Akosua Frimpong of the CPP obtained 23,397, being 0.21%. Mr. John Dramani Mahama of the NDC obtained 6 million. Let me take that again. Mr. John Dramani Mahama of the NDC obtained 6,328,397. And I'd like to repeat that. Mr. John Dramani Mahama of the NDC obtained 6,328,397, being 56.55%. Mr. Hassan Ayariga of the APC obtained 17,461, being 0.16%. Mr. Kofi Kranting, independent candidate, obtained 3,320, being 0.03%. Mr. George Chumberima Edu, independent candidate, obtained 3,091, being 0.02%. Nana Kwame Biediaku, independent candidate, obtained 84,478, being 0.05%. Mr. Alan Kojo Tremanting, independent candidate, obtained 31,202, being 0.28%. The total valid votes cast add up to 11,191,422. Total rejected votes, 239,109. Total votes cast, 11,430,531. It's important to mention that the total registered voters add up to 18,774,159. And the percentage voter turnout based on the 267 constituencies stands at 60.9%. 60.9% based on the 267 constituencies. And as I mentioned, this does not include the 9 constituencies whose results we are yet to receive. Ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned earlier, results from the 9 constituencies are still as outstanding. The 9 constituencies are Ewutu Senya East, in Sawam, Aduajiri, Akwetia, Suhum, Techiman South, Domi Kwabenya, Ablekuma North, Ahafo Anon North, and Damango. The total registered voters in all 9 constituencies add up to 947,116. In the event that all the valid voters from the 9 constituencies above voted for the candidate who placed second, the total number of votes he would garner would be 5,604,420, representing 46.17% of the total valid votes, which would have been 12,138,5 538. The inclusion of the outstanding constituencies would have given the leading candidate 52.13%, which is still greater than the 50% plus 1 required to be declared a winner. And so even with that scenario, he's clearly the winner of the 2024 election. In the light of the above, ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor as the returning officer of the 2024 presidential election to declare His Excellency John Dramani Mahama as the winner of the 2024 presidential election and the President-elect of the Republic of Ghana with a total percentage of 56.55%. Congratulations, sir. It is finished.
All right, indeed, it is finished. That's Jane Mensah, Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, declaring the results for the 2024 presidential elections. Conclusion of that is that John Dramani Mahama declared president-elect with some 56.55% out of some 267. Jane Mensah, out of some 267 constituencies, and Dr. Bamudu Bawumia of the MPP garnering 41.61%. So that's what we have, and that's been the situation ever since. Of course, there were speeches from the victor and then the defeated. Dr. Bawumia spoke first. He spoke very early because, of course, we know the MPP has, over the years, put together a comprehensive coalition system. And he said their system, or the results which filtered through their system, showed that he had lost, and then Mahama had a decisive victory. So he spoke. After that, when the announcement was made proper, John Mahama, President-elect, also addressed the nation, supporters, the nation, and everybody. We'll be playing those speeches to you as the program wears on. But for now, let me introduce my guest for this morning, the Honorable Alassane Sueni, Member of Parliament, Tamale North, who retained the seat. Congratulations, Honorable. Dr. Dixon Adumaku Kisi, Member of Parliament for Anya Soutum on the ticket of the MPP. He did not run in this election. Franklin Kujo, President, Imani Africa. We'll have Kweku Ansah-Sarri, former Director of the Ghana School of Law, joining us. We'll also have Dr. Atta Kennedy, former presidential hopeful of the MPP, joining us. So this will be a discussion for the first part of the show, where we look at the post-mortem of the election. There's been some issues about recollation, and also post-election violence we've seen around. Let me start off with you, Honorable Adumaku. But congratulations, Honorable Sueni, again. Your party won, you won as well. And then indeed, Honorable Sueni is a member of the transition subcommittee. That is important for this discussion as well. So, Honorable Adumaku, yes, what happened? You told us you guys were going to win the election. What really happened exactly a week ago?
Well, first of all, let me appreciate your having me come for today's program. And then let me also appreciate Ghanaians. I think overall, we've strengthened our democracy in the sense that we've been able to literally make changes through the thumb, more so than with guns and steel. So I must commend. And you asked me why I was in white. I'm in white because I'm happy for Ghana in its entirety, that we've shown that we have come to believe in democracy. Now, I think the people have spoken, whether voter turnout was low or not. Literally, I think Ghanaians have spoken, and I would shy away from using these words, but I think it was a vote of no confidence, more so than anything else. And
vote of no confidence in the record,
in the current administration, and for very good or bad reasons, as some of my people will say, it is what it is. The verdict is out. In as much as we thought we were doing good, the metrics or the perception of the public were different. And they meted out to us what they thought was fair based on our actions and inactions. I won't sit here to belabor certain points or to add to the injuries that many of our members have sustained. I can almost say that on average, every MPP member of parliament who went to this battle may have spent close to 10 million Ghana cedis. Yes, from primaries to date.
10 million Ghana cedis?
Yes, on average. And that is because they had faith and they felt that they could win. And like I said, I'm not here to add to their injury. It's a very painful thing to invest so much and lose. And we spent more because we're in government. And, you know, when Suhini goes to give 200 Ghana cedis at a funeral, and I go and give 200 cedis at a funeral, they would insult me.
Because you are in government.
But they forget that at Parliament, we literally take
the same salary,
except for those who are executive.
Executive,
you know,
and even that the difference is very small.
Minuscule. So these are some of the challenges we have with our democracy, and I think that we may have to dial down. You know, I was talking with Honorable Henry Cote. Forgive me for using our conversation, but he felt that people were also demanding more than was doable from a lot of ministers. But
who caused it? The promises were many. I mean, we promised a lot. And so when you promise, you must deliver.
And at the core of all of this, I believe that a systems approach of our fall is very important. And what I mean by that is that I don't want to individualize the issues that led us to our failure. But one thing is of huge importance, and that is the fact that at a point in time, about 90 plus members of parliament within our government felt that we had lost our way. And when we brought it up, we were, you know, taken to the cleaners. And for me, I think that marked a very significant point, turning point, you know, of our colossal failure. When members of parliament who knew the pulse of the nation and felt it, though difficult, to tell Mr. President that, hey, we've lost our way, we've lost the direction, or even if we're on track, the grounds were not with us.
But did they fail to do? You said your people didn't say it. Did they fail to do that?
Which people failed?
I mean, you said some of your people.
Well, I mean, we you know how
because you yourself
know how difficult,
and the Apiakubi and the 90 or so
you know
of
how difficult it is
who raised the issue about Kenofurata. So you did what you had to do. Maybe the system or the center didn't listen.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That was a very huge turning point, leading to our colossal failure. And once you descend, nothing can rescue you. I mean, and I think that moving forward, as a you know, from a corporate experience, it's important that we do a systems approach of the issues more so than the individual, because we need to ask ourselves, how come, you know, we centralized power so much that everything became more so what the executive thought, and I think that contributed largely to our injuries. Let me beg and say that my recommendation to the NDC is to return to decentralization, so that local governance will have a bit more, you know, say. You know, in our second tenure, the MCs were less powerful than the first, and you can look at the numbers. The numbers is what will tell you, you know, the control they had on the, you know, common fund, the metrics had reduced. So and by so, local governance was taken for a ride. And I think some of our decisions largely were injurious to us because we did not pay attention to some of the local nuances. I also pray that Boko issues end quite early. And I hope that, for me, that is a front burner issue. That the issue should not be sustained anymore. It should end. And so that things can come back to normalcy in Boko. If you're thinking of things to do that I would want to bed in the NDC, Boko is one of the very important things on my list. And I remember my discussions with Mahama Ayariga. We know the issues, and we don't need to, belabor it. It has to be addressed as soon as possible, so that our fellow Ghanaians can enjoy, peace and tranquility. It reflects even in the voting. I know they told some people not to step out to vote, and was determined, if you are seen even voting for MPP, my goodness, they'll burn you. No, I'm just saying, literally. So it was better you just stay at home, if even you had a consideration to vote for MPP. But more and more, I think, though painful, in our local language, just say "Ifutu and Sakranipa," just say "in Sohe." We've had to get here to then feel the reality that we had professed, several, months. And I think that we can rebuild, and regardless of who the driver becomes, the party can then, if we go back to our core principles of being conservative and careful with our projections and spending, and a bit more truthful.
A bit more truthful?
Yes.
You are not truthful to the people of Ghana?
No, I think to ourselves. I mean, when people spoke the truth, they were rather vilified. And I suffered injuries largely because I felt that certain things were a departure from our very core. And I think it's time to really go back to what our party was under the likes of, Buzia, and those principles still hold. JB Dankwa, those principles still hold. That is what attracted me to the MPP. I must say, NDC, powerful opposition party. I admired them in certain ways, but when I decided to join the MPP, there were some core things that made me join, and I think that we need to go back to it.
But who leads that process?
As it stands now, I think...
Is there a leader in the party that everybody will look up to? Like, who leads that process? National chairman?
Well, right now, I will throw the challenge to the base, because it's the base that will determine a lot moving forward. And I think that we all need to do a reflection and come to what we were, and reduce the monocracy. So certain decisions were right because people had money. Now we're realizing that, I was watching some lady in Lejokuku who was very clear in her mind that she voted for the NDC without taking a dime because she voted on certain principles, not on, money. And I think we need to look at that carefully. But be it as it may, I need to officially commend and congratulate the NDC for their formidableness in the 2024 elections, and they should be wary. We won't let them sleep. We
made the country ungovernable?
We won't make the country ungovernable. We won't do that. But we will demand of them that they do right by the people of Ghana, and that is what.
And this is notwithstanding the poor numbers you have in Parliament. You do it on the outside.
No, listen. I mean, the fight will be both at the plenary and outside, and even more so now from outside.
Great.
There are many colossal figures who are now out and free to really not necessarily do damage to the NDC, but
speak their mind and
but
take the
now
fight to the umbrella.
Take the fight to the umbrella, and make sure that the umbrella,
the umbrella provides the covering for everybody.
Oh, absolutely, and let me also add that I think over time, the political space has gotten better, in the sense that the acrimonies are a bit low. I almost can say this. For instance, if I can cheat and say, many of the things the NDC may have fought us in the last session, I'm sure when we go back on Monday, moving forward, they'll be a bit relaxed. Because if we make EPA an authority, the NDC stands to benefit now in terms of employment. Because once you make the Environmental Protection Agency
You employ more people.
an authority, it becomes bigger, and it's going to be to the interest of the Suhinis, the Muntakas, to then enjoy the work we're going to do from Monday, and they would also agree that it's in the interest of Ghana to really make Environmental Protection Agency an authority. It's to our benefit as a nation.
Good.
So there'll be no fighting, I hope.
I mean, there'll be nothing to fight for.
because these things,
and majority will sit where they will sit.
Even the loan, the loan of $250 million,
it will be approved.
It will be approved, and it will come, into the chest when
But whether you will table it or not, whether you will table
we
it,
have to. I really think, and this time it will be interesting to watch the Suhinis pushing us to do it, some judge pushing us to do it, because it will come and it will be a cushion for the transition period. So this time they need to lobby us to let this
or to even attend parliament.
Yeah. Because it really, will be in their interest, and I think that the MPP will show leadership and will go and do it, because governance is a continuum, and we're doing it for the Ghanaian people. Though we are down, we have to do this. We have
to complete the term.
Yeah, and do it for the likes of Suhini.
And for Ghana.
Yeah, and for Ghana.
Honorable Senior, interesting points is raised. But this victory has been very emphatic. Many people said NDC was going to win. Pollsters said NDC was going to win. But, nobody really anticipated the quantum.
Seismic.
The huge margin that the NDC gave the MPP. What did the trick? Of course, Bawumia said in the subsequent meeting with people that they gave the power out. Of course, we say that governments lose power. The positions really don't win power. What's your thinking around that? And what made a trick for the NDC? Such an emphatic victory.
Well, I must commend Dr. Kisi. I'm not surprised, though. He's always tried to be very forthright and open-minded when it comes to discussions of this nature. And he has not disappointed this morning, speaking his mind and pointing to some of the pitfalls that the party ignored, which led to the heavy defeat, the heaviest any party has ever suffered in the Fourth Republic. I must, however, start by extending my heartfelt appreciations to everybody who especially took part in the electoral process this year, and especially to the very good people of the Tamale North constituency who once again have renewed my mandate for the third term to represent them in Parliament. I do not take the confidence reposed in me lightly. I remain eternally grateful for the support, the prayers, and the encouragement that I've always received from the very good people of the constituency, the chiefs, the malams, the imams, the women especially, the young men and ladies. I do not take their support for granted, and it's
the
my
bad
prayer.
Ones.
Everybody. It's I do not take their support for granted. I pray that the Almighty Allah will give us the presence of mind and the discernment to continue to lead in a way that will be appreciated by them and to provide the necessary development that our constituency requires. The Tamale North constituency over the years has suffered a lot of neglect, even when the NDC was winning. It's an interesting constituency. It is called Tamale North, but it is in the Sanargo district. you know, and you have Sanarigo constituency. So in the past, even when the NDC was in power, we had a member of parliament from 2009 to 2012 who was quite elderly and respected in the party, playing various roles. I think at the time he was the chairman of the Gapoha Ports and Harbors, and he did his best, you know, for the constituency. But you notice that often many opportunities in government, when extended to the Sanarigo district, went automatically to the MP for Sanarigo. You know, because many didn't know that Tamale North was under Sanarigo district. And so you appointments, you know, opportunities from the central always went there. And so the party, the constituency suffered that neglect, because you have Tamale Metro, which has Tamale South and Tamale Central, you know. And so when opportunities go to Tamale Metro and Tamale North goes there, they tell them that you are at Sanarigo. But you know, so
wrong address.
Yeah, so but I am praying that the God Almighty will help us this time around to do what the people deserve in the Tamale North constituency. I want to also thank everybody who made this victory possible across the country. And you asked what did the trick. I first of all will say that you cannot discount the God factor in this year's election. We are people of faith. I am a person of faith. And I was telling somebody yesterday that, yes, we worked hard. We prayed hard. We did our very best. We threw in everything we could to win this election. And with our best, many of us were expecting a win. You know, we're expecting, I remember on voting day when I was asked, I predicted a 52% win for President Mahama, because I knew the work we had done. So I'm saying that we worked very hard. We expected a win. But somehow I believe God just wanted to show us that He is in charge.
So angels came to vote.
He is in charge. So He overwhelmed us with the level of victory that He gave, so that we will recognize that our hard work alone could not have given us a 56%. But His grace is what made it possible, and we cannot, give our gratitude enough. We can't thank God enough, and I will want to take this opportunity to, extend appreciation to all those who lifted His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the party NDC in prayer, whether publicly or secretly. We pray that the Almighty Allah will help His Excellency the President to meet their expectations and to govern in a way that they will feel proud that they made those sacrifices. Today, perhaps I'm not in white, unlike my friend Dr. Kisi, because I have started, imagining the overwhelming task ahead of us. I've been in white in the last couple of days. Yesterday I was in white, but today I just thought that I didn't feel like wearing white, because it is a victory that requires reflection. The fanfare should be over by now. We need to understand the level of responsibility that has been placed on His Excellency the President's shoulders, and by extension the shoulders of the NDC. The margin of victory, should not let us lose sight of the fact that the expectation is also that high. Yes, the NPP was abysmal in government. Their style of leadership, in many instances provoked people, and I'm sure it is that provocation that has manifested in the endorsement that the NDC got. And people have assigned, this victory in some cases to apathy. But if you look at across the country, the apathy was universal. It did not just affect NPP strongholds. If you went to the NDC strongholds also, you experienced the same apathy. voter turnouts in the Volta region, in the northern region, even in Greater Accra, was not at the levels that we experienced in 2020. And you cannot say that those who didn't turn up were necessarily MPP voters. So I'm sure that even if the voter apathy was high, perhaps you would have had a higher, margin of victory. But I think that it was just a lesson, not only to the MPP, but to even the NDC, that if we come into office and we play, as we say on the street, the fool, we are going to also experience, a similar backlash from the people. And that is why we all have to begin to reflect on the decision of the people that has given us this margin and carry ourselves in ways that will meet the expectations of the generality of Ghanaians. For example, people want those of us given power and authority to be humble. They want us not to just speak of it, but to manifest it in our ways and in our decisions. They will expect us to be forthright and honest. Because you see, the people are not zombies. They live in the communities and they know the truth about, governance, and they know the truth about the trajectory of the country. And so when things are not going well, they will expect us to be that humble enough to be honest to them and not try to create a narrative and push it down their throats. They will want us to respect their intelligence and tell them when things are difficult, that they indeed are difficult, and perhaps give an assurance of how we are working to ameliorate
you think
those difficulties.
The outgoing government didn't do that? We heard a lot of things, that the economy is hard, we are working at it and all of that. We heard all of that.
Well, you see, people know half-hearted, if you like, confessions of hardship. I mean, when you tell me that the system is hard, but you are not responsible, and I know you are responsible, it becomes difficult for me to take that truth. I mean, for example, Dr. Admakisi was talking about the finance minister and how about 90 of them came out to call on the president to dismiss the finance minister. At what point in time did anybody in government, apart from the 90, admit that the management at the finance ministry was hugely responsible for the crisis that we were facing? We were often told that the hardship was because of Russia and Ukraine, and that despite Russia and Ukraine and COVID, they were still doing magic.
But what should they say? That we're not doing well even before Russia, Ukraine came?
Exactly. I mean, the figures showed that we had overborrowed even before Russia.
But our growth rate
and
looked
COVID.
good. The growth rate looked good. Inflation rates were
No,
good.
our
for
growth
a
rate,
long time.
our growth rate was stable. It didn't look good. And even as the growth rate was stable, our indebtedness
was
growing and getting to choking levels. And the warning signs were already clear that the stable growth was not sustainable as a result of the increase in debts. And debts that did not go into, if you like, investments that could yield further growth. So you had a stable growth, but you were borrowing so much, and you were not putting the borrowing in areas that will support the stable growth. So clearly, the risk was there, and all financial watchers had predicted that we were not heading in the right direction, even before COVID and before Russia, Ukraine. That's what I'm saying. But at no point did the government admit to this obvious fact that was known to many economic watchers. At every point in time, they tried to push us to accept the Russia, Ukraine, and COVID narrative. And even when COVID, came, it turned out to be a financial or economic blessing to Ghana. I mean, if you are looking at the numbers, look at the Auditor General's report and how much was mismanaged in the name of fighting COVID. And clearly, you can see that the narrative that COVID and Russia, Ukraine were responsible for our crisis was not tenable and could not be accepted by the Ghanaian people. And I think that is what all of us in this space of leadership must learn. You know, that the people know the truth, and sometimes all they expect from us is to admit to those truths and perhaps point to honest ways of getting out of a bad situation when we find ourselves. I think that my honorable colleague also made a very important point about money in our politics. It is something that we all have to watch.
You agree to the average of 10 million cities candidates?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that he's even been very moderate. I mean, especially when he said that when he took it from primaries to the general elections, a figure of 10 million Ghana cedis it's been very, very moderate. I think so. Yeah. So that's fair. You know, I think that first of all, I have always held the view that campaign of every sort is expensive. It doesn't matter if it is a political campaign or a non-political campaign. And I've often said that even campaigns in churches, Christmas is around the corner, you know, and churches are going to mount all sorts of campaigns, watch night, crossovers. They're expensive to run. TV stations do all kinds of campaigns. Situation that I know that you are advertising is going to cost you money. But yes, at the end of the day, you are expecting a certain return. So campaigns of every sort, political or non-political, are usually expensive. But the problem is with where the expenditure goes. What do you spend on? Where money becomes a problem in our politics is when it is used to buy people's conscience, when it is used to influence people's decisions unfairly. You know, that is where it becomes worrisome. For example, you have candidates, you know, campaigning with ballot sample papers and money under it. You know, what is that for? Or they give a party t-shirt and 100 Ghana cedis in it. What is that for? Really? Or they are packaging Maggi cubes and they are packaging what do we call it? 1,000 and they are distributing it in the various constituencies. I mean, I experienced that in my constituency where my opponent will go on door to door and sharing 50 Ghana cedis, 20 Ghana cedis. It was so appalling that, you know, my team, and you see, one of the ways that you can measure the credibility of a candidate, it's the candidate's ability to raise funds. You know, my team knew that I had that credibility to raise the funds to do a similar thing. But I insisted that we were not going to do that because I cannot celebrate a victory that I feel is purchased or bought. You know, I will rather, you know, have people vote for me or against me based on the, you know, developmental projects and programs that I have championed, which have either met their expectations or not. I will feel better about that. You know, and sometimes it takes a lot of self-restraint not to also get tempted to do some of these things. And I'm saying that we all must watch it. We all must watch that unholy use of money in our politics. You cannot run a campaign without money. That's what I said earlier. But it must be applied, you know, to very relevant areas. For example, you are organizing a health walk and you will need to have some first aid medicines available. You will need to have some water and refreshment available for those who will join the health walk. You will need to have maybe fuel available to support some vehicles that will take part in the health walk. All of this will cost money. You will need to have money to place adverts, you know, for people to join that health walk. All of that costs money. You will need perhaps a stage to be mounted at the end of the health walk. You will need to have a sound system that will address people at the end of the... So these photography. You need photography. These are the areas when you spend in my view, that is reasonable. I mean, but when you go onto the ground and you are distributing raw cash. I mean, it is an insult, first of all, to the voter. And I am very, very excited that the people of Ghana, by and large, in this particular election, rejected that kind of politicking. Because like my colleague was saying, if you go on TikTok, you find people who receive these items, displaying them and still confessing, how their voting pattern, did not go along with the expectations of those who gave them these items. And I think if we continue like that, we will send a very strong signal to our politicians that our votes will be based on our fair assessment of how they have performed to transform our country and our communities, and not how much they give us days or a few days to an election. And so this victory, yes, it's a heavy defeat, 1.6 million vote difference between the NDC and NPP against the NPP. It's a heavy defeat, but it's also a big lesson, not only to the NPP but also to us, the NDC, who are in power today, to
who get into power.
Yes, who will get into power after we are sworn into office on January 7th, to be guided by what has led to this big defeat of the NPP. And I'm very confident that many of us are alive to this reality and will be guided by the principle of fairness, honesty, humility, and also focus on the transformation of our country and our communities.
Look, so how much of this can we attribute, how much of this defeat can we attribute to the ticket? I mean, the candidature of Dr. Bawumia himself and his running mate. This is a sole problem of the record, because when you look at the record, for example, infrastructure-wise, they say they've done quite a bit. Health infrastructure, or health generally, they say they've done a bit. Education, which was the main thing they were trumpeting, or you guys were trumpeting. Free SHS, there were some 88 projects in some schools, inaugurated big time. The education minister was all over the country, and infrastructure. President was inaugurating, projects here and there, even though I think it stopped for now, but I'm sure it will pick up again. How much of that, so that is the record, the hard record, maybe there's a soft record as well, but how much of the defeat will you attribute to the candidacy of Bawumia and by extension the running mate? What role did they play in that?
I think that I've said it somewhere that buildings do not vote. What I mean by that is, infrastructure development is not it all. Grassroots or the ordinary Ghanaian was struggling, and we went too much into capital expenditure, more so than bread and butter for the ordinary Ghanaians. The ticket may have also impacted us one way or the other, but I think that, like I said, we have a systemic issue that we need to look at, more so than individuals. And if we want to rebuild, we'll have to do a systems approach more so than what maybe NAPO did, or more so than what Dr. Bawumia did. I think that from an academic perspective, it's better we look at issues largely in terms of what did we do that, regardless of the drivers, would have made us win or made us lose. And then we can later look at percentage in terms of what the two individuals may or may have not contributed to the issues. I think that if Donald Trump is president again, even with very huge legal issues, which means that there are many drivers that drove the Americans to retain or to bring Donald Trump back. So we need to really look at why they didn't care about these infrastructural developments.
But have they ever cared about this? Because in 2008, Kufuor did quite a bit, but they lost. in 2016, John Mahama was
We
the
didn't lose like
infrastructure
this.
guy.
We didn't lose like this.
John Mahama lost, and
Yeah.
this too.
So I think politics has a lot to do with perception, and regardless of what you do, if the people perceive otherwise, you need to work on that perception. And we failed to attend to the perception of the Ghanaians, in the sense that we were allowed on what we've done, and we felt that what we've done was enough. But the verdict given to us means that what we were prioritizing was not the priority
But
of the voter.
it baffles me, because I know politicians or political parties have their own internal polls. An MPP cannot tell me that they did not have the internal polls. What did the internal polls say to you?
They drowned out the truthful ones. I mean, that's what I said here.
You drown it out to yourself, because you need to be truthful to yourself. If you are telling people otherwise, when you are talking to you yourself,
and let me tell
you need to tell yourself the truth.
Yes, why not catch or confess
No.
some of the people. I mean, listen. Let me take my hat off for Andy Apiakubi. I have to. Listen, sometimes when he spoke, I shivered because I was like, wow, this is so brazen for him to do that. But then
But
he
also paid the price. He suffered for it.
Well, now he's a martyr. If you think about it, yes. If we're talking about people who put their everything down for the party, as the likes of the Apiakubis, who were very independent and spoke truth to power. And I really think that Andy needs to write a book, or somebody needs to write about Andy, in the sense that he really, regardless of the fear of loss of even his election or even his life, said so many powerful things to us in our face. And yet, and let me tell grassroots to that, I think they've also disappointed, in the sense that they always quickly sided with the authorities without questioning some of the things, as we did. And largely, I think we will go back to basics and rebuild. And I think that there's a lot of hope. There is a lot of hope, and we are a party with enormous ideas. The NDC, even to date, I mean, I must admit that this election was not won based on NDC's campaign message, because it was more so, like I said, a vote of no confidence, more so than what people believe in the sense that the NDC may come and do. Because honestly, Suhini knows that we are in a very serious financial situation in this country, and even if incoming President Mahama wishes to do 110%, he might achieve 40%. That is the reality, and I don't want to, I want people to be measured in their expectation of what the NDC can do for them, and I anticipate that some changes will happen. Like for instance, I'm anticipating that not all the Agenda 111s will be completed by the end of the Mahama administration, because they'll sit down and, like we also did, decide to maybe do 16 of them, and not all one. I mean, that will be their decision, but these are the things that I foresee, and it will be injurious to the country. But then it is what it is. That's politics. They are also coming with their priorities, and they would have to meet Ghanaians in terms of the promises they made. Once you're removing e-levy, you have to maybe bring another tax handler to show up your revenues as government. And that is where I think the discussion in terms of the national discussion on our development comes into play. And people will be very truthful to Ghanaians that, listen, we can't grow this country if we don't pay for what we want. And that is a culture that both parties need to work on. Taxation, proper taxation, proper utilization of taxes, that is what drives development. And you can't eat your cake and have it back. So I think in the next foreseeable months, we'll be championing, why people need to appreciate what taxes are for, and why the likes of Europe, UK,
The NDC will love you for that.
you know, no, I mean, listen, I've always been, somebody who is a proponent of paying for what you want. You know, so if you want good roads, you need to pay for it. If you want water systems to work, you need to pay for it. I mean, rule number one in economics: there's no free lunch. Neither are there anything free. Somebody is paying for it somewhere. We had free water. Eventually, we
are still paying for it.
We had to pay for it. So I think that we need to come back to some Ghana first things, and that is what I am hoping. I've always championed Ghana first, and I think I'll champion it even further.
I see.
But Suhini knows that. Listen, in reality, there are promises within the next 3 years. Because let me say 3 years, because within 2 years you are going to elections, and it's not going to be easy for them. And then one of our pitfalls, we did too much in such a short time. We need to have
should have spread it.
Decided that these are all very powerful, innovative things, but what can we do that will not stretch or spread us too thin? And I think that is one of the things that worried us.
I see.
President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was very ambitious, and shall I add, too ambitious for the time. And the African clock turns much slower than the European clock.
Too ambitious for a short time. He had 8 years. And this Agenda 111 thing, he wanted to do it in 1 year. I mean, how feasible was that?
So that is my point, that some of our things were just too gangantuan.
I see.
I mean, and you can have a different argument, but I think that that's why then we took on so much loans. So our expenditures
the loans
were great.
Being used for what really they were taken for. But that's a different discussion.
That's a different discussion.
So hold your thoughts. Let me speak to Franklin Cudjoe. Franklin Cudjoe is on. Franklin Cudjoe is president in Imani Africa. He's joined us via Zoom, as always. Hello, Franklin. Welcome to the program. First time speaking after the election. How are you? How did you receive the result?
Well, thank you very much. I could be better. Good morning to my good friends in the studio. I knew that there was going to be a loss on the side of the NPP. But to be frank with you, I didn't expect it to be Trumpian. Trump virtually, it was the same thing in Trumpland. I never expected it at all. But I was quietly also quite happy that at least Ghanaians were just watching you, listening to you. You can misbehave, you can say all the things you say. You can be tone deaf, you can be just disrespectful, arrogant, and say all sorts of things to people. They just watch you, right? I'm sure you've heard many people say the same thing. So I wasn't surprised. I knew there was going to be a loss for sure, because we also do our own polls. We call it executive polls. So we did all those polls, and we knew exactly. Incidentally, though, when we did the first one in January, John was around 56%, and Bawumia was around 30%. But then we knew that he was going to close up. But I never thought that it was going to be this of a beat necessarily. So, look, it is what it is. It's happened, and I think that politicians definitely are taking note. It's very worrying, and I suspect that I'm hoping that we will see good governance, the ones we've never known in the last 8 years. I mean, I'm still surprised that my good friend Anado could have left such a terrible legacy, exceedingly terrible legacy. And I'll be helping him write his memoir. I don't know, but we'll see. So look, this election was the signs were there. We all knew it, but as I said, we didn't know it was going to be this of a. I don't know what word we should use, sorry, but it was a total beating, and the country spoke. I've heard all kinds of permutations. Oh, some people did not vote. Yeah, of course, the turnout rate was a bit lower, but you make a mistake. I mean, just look at the parliamentary results. Even if John maintained added a 2 percentage point to whatever he got the last time, well, why is it not reflected in the parliamentary result? This was a walloping. Is it shellacking? I don't forget what word experts are using these days. It was a total annihilation. And it's good. But you see, Parliament would definitely also, I know that a leader would be happy to have such a majority to work with in the first place. But therein lies the danger. You should be careful. You don't become tone deaf. You don't push unnecessary bills, silly bills, rush them, and then say everything is kosher. I don't think that's what Ghanaians want to hear at all. And I'll be happy to be. I'm still in the business of harassing politicians for a living, harassing bad politicians for a living, really. And look, it is what it is. I'm happy to have played a huge role in all of this mess. Look at what happened to Sal. You know, it was just disappointing. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes that people I call friends, you know, democratic friends, human rights friends, they didn't even care. They said, you know, Charlie. Anyway, we now have Sal. We have a representative, Brother Gwenyo, but we are still going after the people who caused the Sal. We are still in court. I mean, who was dodging. We now served him. Who served the EC. We'll continue our pursuit of Charlie.
I see.
So these are preliminary remarks. Do you have a direct question, though? Because I function better with direct question.
So let's just move on. I was asking Doc about how much of this he thinks is attributable to the candidates or the candidature of Mahmoud Bawumia and Napo, you know, or is purely a matter of the record they were running of, a record they've been very much a part of. Napo being education minister, leading the flagship free SHS, and later energy minister, key part of the setup, and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia himself, vice president and still vice president of the Republic. Is it just the record or the personalities and what they stood for also made a difference?
Obviously, the personalities mattered. You know, in December 2023 to January 2024, when we did this first poll, we got a series of questions. The likability of Dr. Bawumia, whether they thought he was doing a good job as vice president, and whether he do something better if he's president. Almost all the figures were ranging around 60% disapproval, 60% disapproval. Yes, but they liked him about 70%. They didn't care. They didn't even care if a running mate was from Ashanti, whatever it was. They didn't care. I think, yeah, somehow the running mate, people preferred Ashantis. And this was a poll where 73% of respondents did not identify with any party, you know. So consistently, I knew within the man 4 walls of Brights, Kofi, myself, and Selorm, we already had the data. And we knew that Bawumia's candidature was in trouble because he wasn't particularly liked as a vice president. And you see, and then getting to the tail end of the campaign, he made it even worse by saying that it was just a driver's mate and wasn't doing. That was totally unintelligent. I don't even know who advised them to say such things. People aren't stupid, right? You claim 33 policies for yourself and say, well, that's what the other ones here. Constitutionally, I was just a driver. Even as Santini, before Santini told him, right? I told him that, Charlie, don't say that ever again, right? But as Santini, you met Santini, and Santini said, look, accept the fault and acknowledge them, and then go ahead and say what you want. But I don't know, these people, communication people, this is one of the worst communication teams I've ever seen. I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, wow. And these guys, don't you see they are walking into danger? And then the campaigns were even funny. Some of the campaign adverts were joking. This in Koko, I was so shocked that people could even tell the vice president to say something like that. When your own party is sat in parliament and listen to the Minister of Agri, talk about cockerels, talk about pule that were given to farmers, 14,000, 80,000 pule were given to farmers to do these things. What is in Koko Kitikiti? So you're even denigrating your own people who may be supporting you, who may be just minimum party from you. So the campaign, the communication was terrible. And then they had the candidates who just he was unhinged, going around saying all kinds of things that were not connecting. He didn't tackle the economy. So if you look at the poll that we saw, 60% consistently disapproval of him as vice president, and 50% people said he would not even be a good president. It's terrible. So we knew it was going to happen anyway. So look, the parties, the candidates matter. As on Napod here, I think apart from those who said they cared, they thought that Ashanti, the running mate should come from Ashanti. Overwhelmingly. For the NDC, overwhelmingly people said they should come from the central. So it's interesting. And so then, even though they say Ashanti, they didn't say just any Ashanti. You understand me? The fact that they say Ashanti, and then they bungled the whole thing with, Bamia makes like 3 votes, and then this guy comes to take 9 away. Charlie, it was a terrible show. I don't know whether they were watching themselves. I would never run such a campaign, even if I was giving money to run such a campaign. And those people who did all this, they should be writing their notes by now, but they should stop saying that they want to find out how come they lost terribly, and then start depressing, making it look as though it's not a proper win for John Mahama. And look, get back to the drawing thing. You lost because, one, you were exceedingly lazy, you were fantastically corrupt, you were innately arrogant, and then to add over, they had clever clowns as well that were just jumping around, gyrating, misbehaving, and this was a perfect election that should never have been run the way it was run. So if they want to find out, they shouldn't set up a committee. These 4 great adjectives.
Okay. All right. So Franklin, I wanted to find out what exactly about Napo didn't make it for you, because you said from your polls, from your polls, your internal polls, you said people wanted a running mate from Ashanti, which was popular.
For the MPP,
for the MPP, yes, which was a popular view a lot of people held. But Napo at the time was one of the most popular Ashantis who were in frontline politics, where the few names were mentioned. Education Minister Yareduchum, even Joe Sewusu's name was mentioned, Kokofu, and a few other names were mentioned. But he stood tall, and the fact that he led a free SHS, which was quite popular, and he was the guy at the energy ministry, and we were told that there was no doom so and all of that. He was managing the thing well, and his closeness to Menchia, which became a huge matter, and how the Asantehene received him, prayed for him, encouraged him, and all of that. People thought there was no better candidate there by the pedigree than Napo, and so you couldn't blame Bawumia for going for him because he was the obvious choice. What do you say?
Well, I don't think they did proper consultations enough, because if the Ashanti vote the way it turned out, clearly, that was a rebuff. That was clearly saying, we didn't like you, we will never have liked you anyway, so go home. That's the clearest answer. What else would you say? That they were stupid, that they didn't know that this guy was unhinged and going on off rails, say all sorts of funny things. It's like my good friend Donald Trump's talking about people eating cows and all kinds of things, and then what they call it? He goes on talk about this Hannibal. Charlie, that was a perfect negative champion side. The guy just goes off the rails and he's going on and on. Ashantis aren't stupid. They are not. Just as other Ghanaians aren't stupid. So they were watching him and said, but trust her. And fortunately, they got what they wanted. There were many Ashantis. There were very many Ashantis. The fact that they said they wanted an Ashanti didn't mean that they wanted anybody who could clown around and be challenged.
I see. Just a final before I come to Alassane Suini. Are we not blaming the MPP too much for the defeat? Are we not whipping them too much? We live in a global context. We see what is happening around the world. There's a wind of change blowing. We saw that happen in the US. Trump, with all his troubles, charges, just awaiting sentencing, etc., won an election and won it quite emphatically. We saw what happened in the UK. Labour beating the Conservatives in a manner that many never expected, like we've seen in Ghana. Even South
Hello.
Africa, South Africa,
Hello.
France, all of those places suffered some
Hello.
difficulties. Are we not
Yeah,
blaming the
yeah.
NPP
Hello.
too much, being oblivious of the global context? Yes, frankly.
Listen, look, I don't discount global issues, but all the instances you cited from America to the UK to France, it was an issue of trust. It was an issue of, how do you call it, credibility. Even Trump, with all his faults, he said, look, talk about the economy. Why are you not talking? Why are you not saying that you do the things you say you want to do, Kamala? Why are you not doing them now? Why are you waiting for you to win power before you come and do it? The same conversation happened here in Ghana. Remember, Amir said, oh, if I do them now, what will I do when I become president? Charlie, look, listen, voters aren't stupid. They know there are challenges, but they also know that the person telling them about the challenges and what they can do must come clean and honest. In this country, my old good friend Baumia, what didn't he say about the economy? He was a whiz kid. When the exchange rate is whatever fundamental, it will expose you. We have solid men, all kinds of things. People remember these things, right? So it was a question about legitimacy. I mean, the barometer of legitimacy swung, not because they were talking about economic prowess and all of that. No. It was a question about trust. Trust. In the UK, it was trust. You think the Conservatives, what happened to my own Conservatives? They were lying, they were fooling. Look at Boris. Just said, Abronkwa, misbehaving, saying corrupt. They were also very corrupt. And all of that stuff. In Ghana, what didn't you see? What didn't we experience here? The president can tell you, go to abdomen level, yanked off.
I see. Great. Yes. No, I'm with you. All right. So
the level was yanked off, and so many malgovernance that we saw. So please, let's not reduce this thing to some global wind that was blowing.
Okay. All right. Great.
Global wind was blowing, but at the end of the day, it was also a question of people who needed to be sure that they were telling us the truth. And I think gaslighting people obviously was the least we could do, and it didn't help the party. So please, it is not a question of the global wind blowing. No. They'll kick you out right now. If there's integrity deficit in our system, and I don't think it was countenance well at all.
I see. Great. So Franklin, I'll come back to you. Alassane Sweeney, Adomaku Kisi Doc made a few points. I know you want to respond to that, but talk to me about the parliamentary majority. I mean, the fear is that this majority will make the NDC forget where it's been coming from, where it came from in this last election, and begin to do things irresponsibly. Of course, we've heard President-elect Mahama say he will use it responsibly. But of course, when people get into the mood, people forget a lot of things and begin to misbehave. What assurance can you give to us that this parliamentary majority will not make the NDC behave in the way that many thought the NPP behaved that led to this shellacking that they received of a defeat?
There's a quote I like very much that says that politicians are like diapers.
You change them as
they
often
require
as you
change every now and then, usually for the same reasons.
Yeah.
So it is understandable when people express, reservation about what possibly can happen with the overwhelming majority that the NDC has won. But let me assure people, even before we get there, that unlike the NPP, the NDC tend to have adults in the room. It's never a free-for-all, show for people in the NDC, especially when we are in leadership. And you can go back to when Professor Mills was president and when President Mahama was president. And you can make references to many of the, slogans that were even used to criticize President Mills's government and President Mahama's government were slogans or phrases that were taken from leading members of the NDC. The adults in the room is what I think the NDC, has over the NPP. You can't just misbehave in the NDC and have nobody bold enough to say anything because of your proximity to maybe the president or your influence or your money. And that is what gives me the assurance that these overwhelming numbers that we have in Parliament will not be abused. I mean, heck, Selorm, even when a district chief executive in the NDC asked at a gathering who said Tria, he got a sack. I mean, that is the level of, intolerance of quote and unquote nonsense that the NDC displays when we are in authority. I mean, what level of arrogance didn't we see in this government? What level of corruption, even if not yet proven, but seeming corruption didn't we see? And how didn't we all get surprised about the way the head himself responded to those allegations, like the Madam Cecilia Dapawan and the lovely letter that was written even before investigations could open into the matter, like the contaminating issues before investigations could open into it, what the president sought to do. I mean, these are things that can't happen in the NDC, and that is why, once again, I'm confident that we will not abuse this confidence that has been reposed in us by the numbers that we see in Parliament. But yes, I understand that it's a human institution. People may try to, or I wouldn't say they'll try, people will err every now and then. It's a human institution. Yeah. People will get overzealous. But one thing I can assure you is that the NDC will have the attitude to rein such people in and to direct them to a proper cause.
Yeah,
that
so
is what we didn't see.
If it's just elements in leadership, that's fine. But if it is a man at the top himself, that becomes difficult.
Yeah.
So, like we saw or we were discussing, that the man at the top in this government himself perhaps lost it a bit. There was nobody to call him to
exactly.
You sure the NDC has people?
We do.
To call
like
the
I'm saying,
the man at the top.
Yes. I mean, who did it? How many people? You remember, Ecospio, Gabra, yes, the late Rollins, and others all called Professor Mills to order. The Bagbeans, the what do you call it? The wise men, they called President Mahama to order.
But he didn't listen at the time.
Well, you can say so, but trust me, when that happens,
he will listen.
It doesn't mean that he didn't listen. Maybe he may not have taken the actions, that people were expecting him to take. But it would have also put a certain restraint. And even if things didn't change the way they were expected to change, but that outburst would have put a certain restraint. And perhaps if it was going to get worse, it didn't get worse. And coming from that experience, you can imagine how better, the governance style is going to be. And so I'm quite confident that the adults in the room in the NDC, once again, will help us to not abuse these numbers that we have. And you talked about Nana Ado's, contribution to this defeat and whether the candidate or the performance of government can be put in the equation. And I say, yes, it was a vote of no confidence on Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and Nana Akufo-Addo. It wasn't just the president. It was a ticket that the people of Ghana voted for in 2016 for certain reasons. For certain reasons. They presented themselves as the solution to our problems at the time. Problems being economic, problems, like I said, politicians get changed every now like diapers for the same reasons, because at the time people thought there was arrogance in governance and all of that. But what you cannot take away from the President Mohammed's administration at the time, which to some extent you can't take away from Nana Akufo-Addo's government now, is the fact that they both championed infrastructure development. But you can say that in the case of Nana Akufo-Addo, he perhaps identified this too late in the day. he identified the importance of infrastructure too late in the day. And that is why, for example, in his first term, he promised to construct 45 district hospitals and, districts without hospitals, and did not do jack about that promise until COVID hit in 2020. Then he came with the agenda, whatever, because it started with 88 and went to 111.
Yeah.
That clearly was an afterthought, Selorm. Because if you consider the money that was borrowed from 2016 to 2020, and how that could have completed the 45 district hospitals in readiness for COVID, which didn't happen, only for him to now be rushing to complete 111, which again have, procurement irregularities and leading to wastage. It tells you clearly that the intention was, one, belated, and also not properly, directed at really improving healthcare, but just giving opportunity to maybe party contractors to carry out these projects. Because if you look at the amounts of money that have already been paid these contractors, and you look at the levels that these projects are, you will see that no, there is something wrong with the planning. Again, you look at many of the road infrastructure that he has been commissioning. And Selorm, many of them, I can say about 60 to 70% of them were 8 years old. 8 years late, I should say, not old. 8 years late. Because many of these road projects were conceived and in many cases even started by President Mahama before he handed over. They were abandoned and focus shifted to grandiose and self-serving, projects and programs. Until, like I said, it dawned on him that infrastructure was important. But that's when the funds were beginning to be short. And that is how they then fast-tracked some of these, projects and got them completed and went to do dance and song, around these projects. But the people knew. That's why I was telling you that people are not zombies. The people knew, because the people were living in the communities. The Flower Pot Road, for example, the people were there when it started. Yeah. And so they knew when you were completing it. I mean, the Pokwasi and other, they knew how, these things started and how you had the opportunity to fast-track those and you didn't. And so you were not going to get full credit for finishing them 8 years late. And that is what perhaps people need to factor into the discussion and understand that it was a complete vote of no confidence on Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, because again, he also as running mate and flag bearer did not live up to the expectation that he was chosen and actually prepared a party card to enable him run with Nana Akufo-Addo so that he could solve the economic problem. I mean, people haven't forgotten that and didn't forget that, and it influenced their decision to trust him again.
In the election, there was at some point there was a subtle talk that he was not allowed to work. His suggestions were not taken on board.
And again, that's where
he was just vice president.
And that's what Franklin also said was a very, I can't find a better adjective, but a very stupid, excuse. Because even in that same breath, you had him claim credit for certain things he championed.
Those ones he was allowed to do. So I think the argument was, if you allow him to do it, he does it well.
You see, and that also speaks. My brother was talking about perceptions in politics. I think it is key. And when people are making decisions to vote, I don't think they only look at the hard, issues. They also look at the soft issues. And so if you have a man that tells you, after 8 years of partnering a man who has done so much for him, because he made a party card for him to become a member of the NPP and to become a running mate and to become a vice president.
Must we go there?
No, I'm just talking about the soft issues and the hard issues. Yeah. So if you have a man begin to double speak like that about his boss, it tells you, it shows a certain character that the people of Ghana, I'm sure, would have been uncomfortable with. Even members of the NPP who perhaps saw Nana Akufo-Addo as the idol or saw Nana Akufo-Addo as someone who has done so much for Dr. Bawumia, they were going to feel uncomfortable that this man, after all these years, will begin to claim that all the failures are only for the boss and all the things right are for me. I mean, that is a soft issue. That is the soft assessment that I'm sure people were doing. So that's why I say it was a very stupid excuse, excuse my language, to give. Because either way, it was a damnation for Dr. Bawumia. Claim, you know, the goods and the failures, you are damned because you will take the credits and you take the liabilities. Distance yourself and you show yourself as a character that can be trusted.
There was no way he was going to
He was damned. That's why I'm saying that he needed perhaps to be forthright and endure the consequences. And you never know. People would have admired him for even, you know, rising up to the occasion and saying that, look, we did our best, but we have fallen short. But we need another opportunity to correct things.
He also risked ruffling the feathers of his boss and his boss's loyalists and the boss's machinery he was riding on. So it was a difficult situation, I'm sure he found.
But that's why I'm saying that, I mean, perhaps he needed to have taken it all. And look, President Mahama did that. In 2016, Selorm, you have been in the media for a very long time. Name one scandal that was used against President Mahama's presidency very, very vociferously. That didn't happen under President. That didn't happen under President Mills when he was vice president.
The bus branding?
Well, that's one.
What again?
But the prominent ones, the Woyomi scandal, the Jida scandals, these were all things that happened, you know, when he was vice president. But at no point in time did he shift the blame. At no point in time. In fact, when the Jida happened, he set up a committee to investigate it and got hairs to roll. When the National Service Secretariat issue happened, he set up a committee to investigate it and got hairs to roll. That even, you know, affected many of his close allies. When the bus branding happened under his watch, he sacrificed one of his very good friends and minister, the late Jifar Ativo. I mean, even though she was not directly responsible for it. And that is the difference that people, I'm sure, remembered between President Mahama and the current president. I think what they got right, Dr. Adonoo, what the NPP got right, and Dr. Mohamed Bawumia and President Akufo-Addo got right, in my view, was they had a very good internal plan. You know, a plan of how to hijack their party and use it to their benefit. But they did not have a plan. Yes, they did not have a plan about how to develop this country, unfortunately.
No,
and so you see many of the things.
Bawumia's plan.
Yes, no, I'm talking about Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. They came into office with a plan to lead their party and perhaps to use the state's opportunities to enhance their hold on certain sectors. But what they did not have, and many of the things they did, which were belated, is what gives me the confidence that they did not have a plan to serve this country. Because, yes, I mean, look at it. I mean, like I said, internally they had a plan. I mean, I don't want to refer to Ejepadia because it is controversial. Because it's controversial. I don't want to refer to it. But the coincidence can also not be ignored. It is controversial, but you cannot ignore the coincidence.
They had a plan.
And so they had
for
a
example,
plan.
The implementation of the free SHS in their first year of governance showed that they had a country at heart. They needed to educate the populace.
No. So you see, the plan of free SHS, remember, even in the first year of the implementation, had the finance minister disagreeing with it.
Correct.
That tells you that wasn't part of the plan.
No, but the finance minister's disagreement.
He didn't disagree with the other things we have seen in the Ejepadia document.
But that document,
are you getting it? Though it is controversial. Yes, though it is controversial. But you see, you cannot ignore the coincidence in that document. But when it came to the free SHS, clearly you had him disagree with the way it was being implemented, even though he was overridden. His disagreement was overridden by, you know, the powers.
And his disagreement aligned with the NDC's disagreement with the program.
Exactly. And that
so his disagreement made sense. And that
is the national plan. And that's the national plan. But he was disagreed with. That's why I'm saying that. But eventually, many are beginning to see that his position, which has aligned with the NDC's position over the years, is the way to go. We need to review and look at what is not necessary as far as the implementation of this free SHS policy is concerned.
Great.
It has to be free at the secondary level, but it has to be done in such a way that the burden that parents suffer will be removed, and the poor quality that students currently are enduring will also be taken out, and improved quality seen in that sector. So clearly, I think that it was a vote of no confidence on the internal plan to hijack the NPP, and less attention and focus on the overall development.
And I'm sure Adonoo Kisi was in that plan, so I want to take a break. So
he was not part of the plan. That's why he suffered.
I see. That's Alasan Suhini, member of Parliament for Tamale North, and then of course Adonoo Kisi, MP for Anya Soto Messier. Franklin Kujo is on Zoom. We've been looking at some post-mortem of the election that just got declared. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at the issue about the recollation in some constituencies. I'm just reading a statement from the EC that says that Dominic Kwabena, Kwaikwe Central, and all of that will be annulled because they were declared illegally. There will be legal implications for that, but we'll look at it. The NDC, we understand, is also going to court for an injunction on the recollation, etc. Interesting days ahead. We'll look at all of that. But before that, let me take a few of your messages that have come through. This one from Muhammad Abdullah says, good morning, sir. Let it be told that if we want to build a country, we need to use the built environment experts to give cost of project and not politicians moving forward. I rest my case. This engineer, Muhammad Abdullah, is a well-known person. Ghana Institutions of Engineering, Ghana Institute of Architects, yes. Ghana Institute of Planners. So we should use these institutions in making cost of projects authentic. Yes, so that's Engineer Mahama sending that message.
He jumped before the ship sank.
Koku in Kwabena says the OPPP mantra often reflects a cycle of blame shifting, where incoming governments emphasize the dire state of the economy to justify their actions or inactions. This narrative can frustrate citizens because it tends to focus more on pointing fingers than presenting actionable solutions. It's true that governance demands transparency, but using the, quote, empty coffers excuse too frequently risks becoming a distraction. If the populace already knows the problem, what's urgently needed is clear, actionable strategies backed by evidence, timelines, and measurable outcomes. All right, so that's from Koku in Kwabena. This one from Tinkran, which is addressing an issue we will come to soon. He said, good morning, Selorm. I suggest the best way to solve this collation issues is to have returning officers and a court clerk at a polling station, where one will take his to the collation center and one would also be sending his to the court. So, as in a case where there's a problem at the collation center, the damages can fall on the primary one that would be sent to and recorded by the court clerk in order to forestall this crisis. Yes, Tinkran Alexander is a lawyer, so we can understand the court clerk and all of that. Thanks so much, Tinkran. We're getting to that. We'll take a short break. We'll return with more. Don't go away.
How far with your internship?
To be honest, I'm so nervous about starting this new role on Monday.
Oh, please. I know you'll be great at it. You should be worried about what benefits they have. Example, do they have health insurance?
I doubt they will have that for internet. But no shaking. I have NHIS already.
After you're on a line, ting.
Ina, look at you. What are you going to do in the office when you can just download the app to register for an NHIS membership?
Yes, my people. You heard right. You can now download and register your membership on my NHIS app. No long queues or tedious paperwork. All you need is your Ghana card to register for yourself and for others. Once you register, you get a new digital NHIS card on your phone. My NHIS app gives you access to credentialed health facilities and services across the country. NHIS covers over 95% of disease conditions in Ghana. Access to healthcare just got easier.
Now let me sign up quickly. Please, Seth, I'm starting work next month.
We all have that one friend, always by your side for the big moments and ready to assist. He's always got his eyes on the prize and his heart in the right place. Where would we be without our BFFs? This season, enjoy all 380 Premier League games with your BFF GoTV. Upgrade or reconnect to GoTV Super Plus for the discounted price of just 265 cedis today. GoTV, love it.
Unwrap a world of entertainment with DSTV.
We've entered a new era. Welcome.
Some of the boys think you are legends.
So cool. Your music, it's incredible.
I mean, everything is going exactly the way we dreamt it would go.
It's not enough to be good, we need to be different.
That's where I come in.
Have you been good in the last year?
Oh my goodness! I can talk!
Baby powder.
It's all about family. You want to shoot first? After you.
I can see the future. Shouldn't see that coming.
This is just so exciting.
Add a little more this festive with DSTV, your home of entertainment.
Hey, Walambo!
Hey, Walambo!
Hey, Papa, I asked him to buy me original politics.
Hey, please don't make mistake. Stop the papa. Open your come on. And you politics no girl. Papa.
Papa, can ruffle.
The politics is original, the first and the best.
What is? Who got also to the acrobat to use me?
Politics, yes.
National Thanksgiving Service for Ghana. Ampa. Onyameni Ghana diniye. Amen. National President of the Aglo International no. Any executive the Anije Eka Obibia say. National Thanksgiving Service for Ghana. Aforibo Kesiye 2024 Basso. Mimni that 21st December. Wa Blaster Square and Cry. Anopa nonson 7 a.m. prompt. Team, come and see what the Lord has done. Psalm 66 verse 5. Mumra Meshedi Onyamiaye. Music Ministration. Award-winning SCP Kofi Sapon. Very Reverend Dr. Clara Dankwa, DJ Paloma, Aglo Kwa, and Aglo Tambourine Choirs from the regions. Mwafadye enye anything Ghana. For Vuvuzela, tambourine, anywhere handkerchief bra. Niye mbomo and celebrate ye nyankopo. When ya wayama ye my Ghana. Be aglow for Jesus.
You're welcome back. This is the big issue. We are looking at last week's election, the declaration, post-mortem, recollation of some constituency results, post-election violence, etc. My guest, Alasan Sweeney, Honorable MP for Tamale North, he retained his seat. Dr. Dixon Adomaku Kisi, MP Anyaso Otum, he didn't run this time. Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa. We're hoping to speak to Kuku Ansasari, a former director of the Ghana School of Law. Dr. Atta Kennedy, former presidential hopeful of the NPP, he is in the US. Hopefully will join us as well for their take on what has happened and what, looking forward, we should do as a country. Now, there's been some issue about some constituencies. The presidential has been declared by Jean Mensa, but some of the constituencies had issues. So in the Eastern region, for example, there were some 4 constituencies, Fatiankwa North, Suhum, Akwetia, and Nsawam-Edu-Ejiri, very problematic. Before, these were MPP seats apart from Akwetia, but Akwetia traditionally really has been MPP. There were some issues with it. Collation couldn't happen. The EC had to move the recollation to the police training college or school at Tesano. Some issues with that, people have said. And also, Okankwe Central, where we are actually, Okankwe Central, had issues. Baba Siddiq, the NDC candidate, was declared winner. Long-term MP, Patrick Boama Esquire, is not happy with a few things. Dominic Kwabinya, traditionally MPP, fell to the NDC this time around. In the parliamentary, Eli Plim Akurugu declared winner, but Gabo, Michael Kwe Jr., has issues. The Electoral Commission, I'm just reading, is saying that they have cancel those results because they were declared improperly. And so that is an issue that we have to look at quickly, and what that means for the process and for those candidates there. Do they have the power to do those annulments, or it really has to go to court? We will look at that. But let me start off with.
I think he's been talking.
Yes, okay. So let me start
Let's
off.
change the sound bite.
Yes. So let me start off with Dr. Adonoo Kukusi. Well, I mean, the question is not about what happened, because a lot of these seats were MPP seats, but the Recollation. What's your thinking around it? Your party had to come in strongly, and a few of those seats were now coming back to the MPP. Akwetia was declared at the Tesaro place, Fantia Kwanoff, even Suhun, even though very closely contested, and they were in the process of recollating and Selorm Adonoo's constituency when the NDC went to court for an injunction and all of that. What's your thinking around all of this, and why do you think we had to get to this point? Why is it so difficult getting those results?
Well, let me cite one story. Obuasi East.
Obuasi East, yes.
The candidate has admitted that...
Which candidate?
The MPP candidate.
Okay.
He was literally under the knife and gun to concede. And that is serious. That is serious. I can almost admit that the most appropriate thing is for both parties to agree to collation. And when it is done, whether declared prematurely or not, if you are declared appropriately as winner, recollation will just reaffirm. So if, for instance, in the case of Honorable Patrick Boama, Sadiq was declared prematurely, and even at the time of declaration, the numbers were in favor of Patrick Boama, which even baffles my mind, if you understand, to say the least. Patrick was ahead of Sadiq. So how do you declare for Sadiq? And these are very
but when they
serious.
declared, Sadiq's numbers were higher, minus some 9 or 6 polling stations, you know. So about 78% of the polling stations have come.
But this is not even presidential. This is parliamentary. It's never been the case, you know, especially when it's being contested. Why don't you wait and just finish the collation? There's nothing like a serious deadline timeline for declaration, if truly you've won. So I think that, and especially if you've truly won, why fear collation? Because you have your pink sheets.
Yeah,
we have our pink sheets.
Because the pink sheets, things were changing. So one of the constituencies, it was alleged that the EC's pink sheets were very different from what the parties had. So everybody had a different pink sheet. And it was also alleged in one of the constituencies that the EC's pink sheets for about 30 police stations had the same handwriting. So all of these things were happening. So maybe they felt the need to quickly declare so that everybody goes.
I think that in the case, let me speak for this area where we are.
Calgary Central, yes.
Patrick is a fine gentleman. Sadiq too, nice guy. I think that Sadiq, rest assured, once the NDC have their numbers in terms of their pink sheet, and the MPP brings theirs, and mind you, there's other parties involved. If they bring, and every polling station chairman in Okankwe Central at this point in time, every polling station chairman or chairperson should know the numbers, you know, when they counted, and if that disputes, then we'll know. So I think that in lieu of what has happened, recollation is apt. Nobody will be cheated if the figures are double checked and quadruple checked. And mind you, people actually took pictures of the results. You know, at my polling station, after I was declared, I wrote down my numbers. So many people have the appropriate numbers, and I think that there should be no violence and no use of force, and the numbers will speak for itself, and both parties should be very ready to present their you know, pink sheets, and then the EC should also have a way of really attesting. For instance, I mean, the bio-verification, you can't give me numbers more than were verified, you know, and luckily enough, the NDC had this nice device for counting the number of people at a polling center. So they know that if the numbers don't jive with what they have, then they have another strong case. So if you pick a polling center and they counted, 400 people, and our pink sheets are giving us more than that, then there's an issue. You can attest. So I think that in all fairness, he who won should not be protesting for collation if he truly won, because the numbers, verified numbers will prove that point. And this is a case where, why did they rush to do Sadiq's? Why did they rush to do it in many other places? And it also appears that, the likes of Selorm Adonoo, it seems that, some of his orations during the elections, got the attention of the NDC, and they are bent on showing him where power lies. These are some of the words of the people on the ground. And I think that showing him where power lies does not mean that you should deprive the citizens who voted for the man their rights to be counted. Every vote counts. And this really is about the rights of every voter. You can't make a determination by way of what you feel. In some instances, they said, oh, President Mahama won, so that means, no. They are skirt and blouse. Yeah. And I can almost attest to the fact that, as for Patrick Boama, he's almost like a two-party man in Okaigwe Central, in the sense that I will not be surprised that he may have gotten votes as equal as President Mahama, if you understand what I'm saying, because he is loved by both parties. So if you base your fact on the fact that Mahama won in Okaigwe Central, so Patrick has lost, no. It doesn't work that way. To share my own experience, in 2000, I got votes more than the president. So what would we have said? That because of what? No. Some people are loved by both parties. And if we don't pay attention to that, and we say that Tema Central, Mahama won, so MPP lost, we'll be making a mistake. And the reverse. So I'll plead with the people, to be cool, to let cool heads, manage this. And I'll plead with the NDC through Suhini here. I believe and know what they are intending to do. But Ghanaians have entrusted you now, and hope that you'd act accordingly and be very careful with power as it stands. Some of your inactions now will show us whether you appreciate what Ghana has done for you.
You see, they are protecting the votes of the people. And that's what they have to do. And that's what they've done in the period. And we're able to collate the results, did what they did, and they won.
But how do you protect when you declare prior to completion of collation, especially for a parliamentary seat? Is unheard of. I think that for parliamentary seat, which is not presidential.
How about in cases where, if you put together all that is outstanding, give it to the losing candidate, he will not make it. So that is clear.
Well, in those cases, if it is very clear, I think the other parties will concede. In a case where it isn't, and pockets of discrepancies, we need to make sure that the verified numbers are looked at. And once the verified numbers, the last time I checked, it was 21,000 to 19,000 or so with Okaigwe Central.
21,000 in favor of who?
With Patrick leading. That's the last time I checked.
Okay.
And
it would be strange for the returning officer to announce results with Patrick or the
most
Patrick
of the videos
leading.
The numbers were not even.
Then he will say the other guy won.
And let me add this: some of the pronouncements were without numbers, which baffles my mind. That is not the norm. The Electoral Commission, when they want to declare who won,
they should give numbers.
They are supposed to state categorically that these are the numbers.
And percentages.
Yes. How can, like in the case of, I think one that I saw, which has been corrected, the case of Antiakwa North. The guy declared without actual numbers. And who does that? You should. Even when you have truncated the process, and you are making a declaration in error.
You declare based on the numbers you have at the moment.
You have to state the numbers. And then when somebody can question those numbers, but when you refrain from declaring numbers, that shows me that one, you are unaware of the processes, you are not the rightful person to make that declaration. And I really think that, listen, politics has all kinds of tricks, and I believe that, you know, the tricks can go in your favor or not in your favor. But as it stands now, for democracy and let me even add to Chiman South. I think that the NDC are out there largely to just do like a quote unquote frustrate Martin J. Kosa. Because based on what I understand, the NDC collated numbers show that they lost. Yes. And this is internal info or intel from the NDC's quarters. They know they lost. But because of the prior happenings in the year before, you know, 2020, they want to meter out something to Martin and frustrate him for no reason. So I really think that, listen, to make our democracy rich, I mean, listen, you if it's 180 you've gotten, the ones that are still for us, let us enjoy them.
Very well.
And it is in the interest of democracy. And I think that certainly if it so happens that we need to do a whole new election for these places, maybe that might be what we may have to return to.
Great.
You know, so we'll have a special by-election for these constituencies, and that one there, la ilala ilala, is going to be quite brutal.
All right.
You know?
I mean, Mr.
And there was one thing before I conclude.
I'm so sorry.
There's one thing I wanted to add. Some of the issues we had said in certain quarters that a change in the ministers would have helped. People wanted to see fresh faces.
But that happened, but all those ministers lost. You know, there were appointments made. Sarah Malasan, Okoboy.
The timing was too late.
Dakwa Newman.
And we had asked for this, you know, and some reshuffles were done where we thought
Ophelia, Hayford from
we thought the placeholders.
But is it not interesting that all those fresh ministers lost? Okay, all those fresh ministers lost. So Sarah Malasan lost.
Even former Minister of Health also lost.
Which from Okoboy?
No, I'm saying former.
That's Ajimamenu. Yeah. He contested? Yeah. I thought he left the scene. So he lost. Oh, I see. I see. All right.
So the timing. I felt that, you know, at some point, you know, and that's one thing I like about Donald Trump. I must admit, he will change you in a heartbeat. and we stayed far too long.
So maybe I'm going to put this in context, maybe before Prof comes in.
Okay.
You know, he's made a number of allegations.
I wanted to put everything together, then you will deal with them, since you are in there now. Okay, so I'm sure Prof will raise some issues. Frankly, may raise some issues. I'll come to you to just deal with that. All right.
So you get a final bite.
So, Mr. Kweku Ansah-Sarri, former director of the Ghana School of Law. Good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue. Thanks so much for your time. You've been following elections in Ghana. You've seen the process and everything. Talk to us about your impression about this election and what you think caused the upset to the MPP that we have seen.
The question again, please.
Yes, I just wanted your impression on the results we have seen and what you think accounted for the defeat of the ruling party.
Colossal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, and thanks to listeners. My impression, I think it was fairly decently organized effort on the back of the EC. I think it was, a good job that the EC executed. As to, what could have accounted for the colossal defeat, a number of factors, beginning with the arrogance and insolence of the president and his cohorts. I was on air several times stating my displeasure with the way and manner the president was running the country, the level of corruption, the galamsey menace, the arrogance of his ministers, the state capture, of resources, the anger in Ghanaians with the president and his lieutenants failed to acknowledge. And there was a lot of anger, in millions of Ghanaians. The resentment, people were disillusioned, and yet the president, failed to act as though, if I say I mean the MPP, our, breaking the eight was a foregone conclusion. It was, divine, and, nothing, could halt, our progression into, the next governance. So it's a combination of factors, and the president must take the blame, for that. Secondly, I think the president's imposition of Bawumia on the MPP, accounted for the underperformance, of the ministers. I just heard your friend say that all the fresh ministers lost. I don't know about their freshness, but to me, I don't even think that they were ministers, because they were not vetted. You remember the Hula Balu, about their vetting. So they were not vetted in the first place, so as to clothe them, the requisite authority, ministerial, status. So they were not, fresh ministers. Then the fact that the special prosecutor only exonerated people who, the great view of the public had, misconducted themselves. Take the case of Cecilia Abena Dapa, for instance. The whole nation, felt that something untoward had happened, and yet, the court and the special prosecutor, colluded, to exonerate her, and it was something that Ghanaians, waited to ride on to punish, the MPP. Now that the chips are down, we are going to see a much more disorganized and disjointed MPP for at least the next 12 years, the next 12 months. This is because the MPP, by our tradition, if you lose an election, if you are a president, we don't have a leader. Our leader is the chairman of the party. So our presidential candidate is not a leader of the party. So if you lose, you don't necessarily, retain your first or primacy. You have to go back to the queue. So you have to follow the queue. So Bawumia will now be the last, and the first will be the person who will be elected. Now, if by our tradition, the good people or the MPP feel that, Bawumia must be considered, they will consider him, but he has to be considered amongst the other candidates. So he's not necessarily going to. That's why the last time I suggested that the MPP could, seeing what Bawumia had done, could tap, into his political personality. He was very quick to concede, and that diffused, the tension that had engulfed the nation. Is an aspect that the MPP must look back. That's it. So the corruption, the arrogance of the ministers, the fact that three, people, the former finance minister, the cabinet secretary, the president's secretary, and then my, good friend, Gabriel Esaro. These three have surrounded the president, and people felt that they were not, they were making virtually the president, to be unapproachable, or look like someone who could not be approached from a distance. And people kept saying that they should allow the president to, free himself and line with the people, they will hear nothing of that. So they are also to blame, for what has happened to the MPP. The Gabriel Sarochedako was not within the traditional MPP, cohort. He was not amongst us. And yet, all of a sudden, after, the president, Akufo-Addo, had won, he became, sort of the prime minister.
No, but what do you mean by he was not within the ranks of the MPP? We saw him in even 2008. We've seen him all along, before 2008.
But the MPP was born in 91, 92. I'm saying that until 2008, nobody knew.
And even prior to that, he was a party person. We saw him in the media, doing the work of a party person.
He was a party person during Nana Akufo-Addo's time.
No, even prior to that, he
was not a party person.
We saw him in Kufuor's time. We saw him as editor of the Statesman and all the things he was doing. Sometimes
Kufuor's time, he was not as prominent as Nana
But people grow in prominence, don't they? The more your relevance is seen, the more prominent you become.
Yeah.
So he grew in relevance and in prominence over the period to 2008.
He didn't grow in relevance. He made himself relevant to Akufo-Addo, and Akufo-Addo projected it. Yes.
I see. I see. But that is to say, apart from that, many have said that he worked hard for the Akufo-Addo presidency. At least to get the party into office. We all saw he worked hard. And once you work hard to bring a party to power, you want to police and protect.
He worked hard for his own good, for his personal good, not for the good of the country. And that is why the MPP was punished. He's my friend. That's why I started by saying my own, friend. Now,
I see.
You see, this country, we continue worshiping sycophancy. And, right from independence, sycophancy has killed sycophants. They will create weave rings, penetrate. So the lesson that we in the MPP must learn, and for the NDC as well, is that it doesn't pay, to hero worship. It doesn't pay to be sycophant.
I see. That's
the point I'm making.
That's quite interesting. But a lot of you people with sympathies to the MPP analyzing this, of course, I can understand the pain and all of that, because some of you spoke earlier and it appears that the system didn't listen, and so this is where we are. And so, you say all the things you say. But are you not being too harsh on Dr. Bawumia and the MPP right now? And I put the same question to Franklin. Given the global context, the wind of change blowing across...
As for Dr. Bawumia, I don't think I'll be harsh on him. He found himself, in wrong hands and at the wrong time. I don't think that Dr. Bawumia should have aligned himself, because, he couldn't even penetrate the wall that was, erected around his own president. And
I see. I think we are having difficulties with the connection. We'll work on your connection and then continue this from where you left off. Franklin, so we're looking at the Recollation and all of that. So Mr. Sasari, we'll work on your connection and then we'll continue this. So Franklin, the Recollation we were talking about, I don't know what comes to mind when you see the scenes, the parties and all of that. Like Dr. Adomako Kisi was saying, if you've won, you have your pink sheets. Just relax, let the Recollation be done, and whoever really won will be announced. Is it that the parties don't trust themselves, they don't trust the EC, or what's the point? What's the problem?
Well, to start off, I'm sure you know that Afarijan, the revered former EC, actually had problems with this collation centers and all this. I don't even understand what value that was giving us at all. Just busybody EC people trying to make it look like the elections are some wonderful, crazy things. I don't understand. Even Nigeria, that we think that they are a mess. Every individual and every citizen can actually go onto the website and download pink sheets and then get the information. What is so difficult? Meanwhile, we are spending so much money per voter on IT based on this. What is this? This is shambolic.
No, what are you suggesting? That there should be no EC collation center or something? Because they have to collate it anyway.
That collation center. No.
But they must put all the pink sheets together from the various police stations at some point.
Well, before this collation centers, when we not having elections in this country, the last collation issues we had, we saw the problems we had. People died. This same one, look at how they were messing. The whole thing was just shambolic. And for me, I've never understood this collation center business anyway. So for me, look, I seriously have a problem with the way this was organized. I can understand that parties, some of them were very agitated and what have you. But that, like, we have flashpoints. There are certain areas that, Charlie, just get your data and then just go on with it. I think the parties already have the data. Anyway.
Yeah, but frankly, there were instances where people who will look for the one having the pink sheet, stack on the pink sheets, and beat the person, take the pink sheet, tear it to pieces, or burn it. It happens.
When they were the collation center,
they were all over the place. Maybe they see you moving with the papers, they'll catch you and beat you.
Most of these have been at the collation centers. You think the individual? Most of these things have been at the collation center. I saw people being beaten. Yes.
And they tear the papers into pieces so that you don't have anything to rely on.
It doesn't make sense. When you've already accounted for the ballots, then you are carrying some. Even the mode of carrying the mode by which they were carrying some of these ballots to the collation center was even funny. Some were carrying in all kinds of bucket. I mean, what is this? You think people would not be angry and already if you have lost, you find ways and means of disrupting this whole collation center business. So for me, Charlie, they brought this up on itself. We've had elections in this country. 2016, did you have collation centers? Didn't the MPP win? Then 2020, you go and introduce this thing. Busybody, appoint so many people. You say you're appointing actuarial scientists. I'm going to say, I got all this. It is not about a show. It's about just being efficient and organized stuff. By the way, I think the parties have the numbers already. They have the numbers. Those ones that have been bent, well, they already have the numbers. I don't think any party member, any political party doesn't know what the true numbers are. But you see, because of the collation nonsense, now it means you have to go and look for all of it. Charlie, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a total mess.
I see. Let me come to Sweeney. So Sweeney, you are in the center of it. Your party, I saw your colleagues, Sam George, Dr. Tanko, Otokuno, and co. What really were you guys pushing for? Because you have the pink sheets. If you collate them, you know what it is. What's the problem?
Selorm, before I say anything, I just feel like saying a Yezu.
Will you respond?
I just feel like saying a Yezu.
Yeah, we to say so.
Especially to our, branch executives, our constituency executives, the volunteers, and, our agents who were the soldiers on the day, the youth who, threw themselves and everything that they have into ensuring that we got the outcome that we were expecting. In fact, by 7 p.m., Dr. Omani Boama will tell you that based on the metrics that we were using, we knew we're, comfortably winning by 7 p.m. after, voting.
In a comfortable lead.
Yeah, when the votes started coming in. I mean, based on the metrics that we're using, we knew that our performance was increasing and the MPP performance was increasing. So we knew by 8 p.m. that we were on the way to victory. And this as a result of the efforts of all these people.
This time your coalition system was not hacked.
Yeah, all these people that I want to salute this morning, the branch executive, the polling agents, and all those volunteers across the country. And before this election, Selorm, we said that we didn't trust the Electoral Commission. We never minced words about it. But we were confident in the system that we were putting in place. We were behaving, we made that promise, like Azuma Nelson going into the boxing ring with our own referee. And so we never have hidden the fact that this Electoral Commission, led by Jane Mensah, it's a political one, a political institution that is biased in favor of the NPP. We've never minced words about that. And you know, if you have consistently followed our banter with the Electoral Commission on the issues that they try to introduce into this election, you realize that every step of the way, we got them, you know, pants down. And their explanations on many occasions just didn't convince anybody that they meant well. But we were confident in the infrastructure that we had put in place to ensure that every vote in our favor was collated and counted to be so. So what is happening now? Look, I just saw a statement that they issued yesterday. What is happening now doesn't surprise us. They are simply, you know, living up to our expectation. Dom Kwabenya, even the candidate, the NPP candidate, has come out to concede, has met with his...
Who, the NPP candidate?
Yes.
Dom Kwabenya, Gabo?
Yes, Gabo. There's a video of him, you know, even talking to his campaign team members that, look, they have spent money.
Because he addressed the press, says he was not going to...
I'm saying that there's a video online where he's talking to his team members that indeed they have spent money, they have spent time, but they still have life. It's an election they have lost. I mean, that concession is there. It's on. Wow. Yet you have the Electoral Commission saying that it's not over there. What do you want? What do you want? Are you a referee or you are a player?
But yeah, I'm hearing that it was one of the old videos from his primaries, which has just resurfaced. I mean,
well,
because he addressed a press conference, you know, where he stated that the things were not done properly. And
aside of that, you know, we all know that the NPP told us that they were going to win this election with a strategy. In fact, on my campaign trails, I used to make reference to it and point to how abysmal they have been in government. Because you can't be in government after 8 years and you are not boastful of winning the next election on the basis of your performance in government, your delivery, but you are boasting of how you will win it with a strategy. The question that many of us kept asking was, what is the strategy? And so when some of these things begin to happen, strategy is strategy, but you see, strategy can be a fair or unfair one. So when things like this are happening, you begin to wonder if this is the strategy that they spoke of. And Selorm, with your permission, I just want to share with you 2 letters from the Electoral Commission. This one was issued, I think, yesterday, 13th December 2024. And the heading is Halting of Recollation of Presidential and Parliamentary Election Results. Signed by Samuel Tete, Deputy Chairman Operations. The Electoral Commission wishes to inform the general public that the recollation of presidential and parliamentary election results, which was ongoing at the Tesano Police Depot for constituencies whose collation did not follow the legal process as enshrined in CI 127, as well as constituencies where collation on election day could not be completed, have been put on hold until further notice. The inability to collate and declare results on election day, which led to the recollation at the Tesano Police Depot, was due to disruptions of our collation processes by political party supporters on election day and the days following. It is instructive for the public to know that the Commission informed political parties of the change in location to the Tesano Police Training Depot after agreement with the Inspector General of Police and his team. Indeed, all the agents of the political parties observed the process yesterday, which resulted in the collation and declaration of results for the Fantiakwa North, Akwetia, and Suhum constituencies. We urge all stakeholders to collaborate with the Commission as we carry out our mandate. Now, this is the Electoral Commission yesterday talking about a recollation exercise that was necessitated because, according to them, legal processes as enshrined in CI 127 were not followed. Now, I'll share one with you that the same Electoral Commission wrote in 2020, on the subject of recollation. When the NDC marched to the Electoral Commission, remember, led by the then minority leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, to present a petition to request a recollation of results in Techiman, South and other constituencies. This was what the Electoral Commission said. And I want to, because of time, I'll just go to the relevant portion, 13. Among other things, the Electoral Commission wrote, Recollation can be done at all levels when requested before declaration of results. However, once election results have been declared, a dissatisfied party cannot request for recollation or recount of the results. The validity of an election for the office of a member of parliament may be questioned only by a petition presented within 21 days after the date of the publication in the Gazette of the results of the election to which it relates. This resolution mechanism is provided for under Section 16 of the Representation of the People's Law, PNDC Law 284, as amended.
Proper declaration, not just any declaration.
No, you are qualifying.
In this case, we're questioning the declaration.
Qualifying it. We question the declaration in Techimansav. That is why we presented a petition. We questioned the processes that led to the declaration. And so, that's why we presented a petition for a recollation to be done. That's all we asked for. But our advice by this same electoral commissioner was that we should go to court. And that after declaration, your only remedy is to send a petition to court.
But that's proper
this same electoral commissioner today is telling us that they have sanctioned a recollation because declarations were done that they don't find acceptable by law. Are you a court to determine?
I think.
How have you constituted yourself now?
Under duress is different.
How has she constituted herself now to determine infringement on CI 127? How? How is she now a judge? It's about facts.
Which a court should have to.
Exactly. If you strongly feel that CI 127 was not followed in the declarations that you are making reference to, the same advice you gave us should be given to these people. Urge them to go to court, and even if you have to appear in court and testify as a witness in their favor, you do so.
But let me add.
I don't want you to
just one thing.
But let me finish with this point because my chain of thoughts. Because clearly, this is evidence of what we have been saying about Madam Jean Mensah and her bias against the NDC and in favor of the NPP. Clearly, she should have given the same advice she gave to the NDC on the Techimansav petition to these people. She can even sympathize with them that the declaration didn't follow CI 127. But it is not within her right.
Techiman has not been declared, right?
It was also declared.
Okay.
Techimansav, it was declared for our candidate this time around. Yes, really? It is also being challenged.
Okay.
Yes, it was declared. Now, some of the officers, belatedly I'm told have said that they did so under duress. But that is for the court to determine.
But that was not the case.
Based on your own letter to the NDC, once the declaration is done, a petition goes to the court. You do not constitute yourself into a court to determine the infringements that occurred in the process of the declaration. So we are not surprised. We are not surprised. We are only happy that she is living up to the expectation of the NDC. When we accuse her of being biased, and people have doubts and think that it is personal, some of these actions, lend credence to our position that she is indeed biased. We never trusted her going into this election. We never will. But we thank God that we were, ahead of her in terms of the infrastructure that we put in place to safeguard, the votes that came
the ones that have not been
in our favor.
But has Selorm Adonoo been declared? That hasn't been declared at all.
And so I think it has also been declared, but that's where it is said that it is claimed that the electoral officer is saying that he did that under duress now and all of that. In some of the cases, in fact, the returning officers declared them. But after this recollation nonsense, you have the deputy RO now doing the declaration.
The case of Fantiakwa now. So
I mean, what is that? You have a returning officer who is mandated by the law to declare a winner. The officer has done that. Then you organize a recollation according to you because you notice infringements on CI 127 when you are not a court to determine so.
I see.
And then you now get an officer who is not mandated by the law to do a declaration, another declaration, and you think that is not an infringement. And that is why our party has put an injunction on the process.
I see.
And so I expect that, you know, the injunction will be respected, and then we can all, if it becomes necessary, go to the court, and we expect that, you know, justice will be served. We are very happy with the number of seats we have, and trust me, even if we decide to give these seats to them, we are still going to have a super majority. But we think that it is unfair. It is unfair to have a constituency represented by one who was not chosen by the constituents.
Very well.
And we will not, derelict on our responsibility and our job to ensure that we protect the votes of
Mr. Kukwasasari is on. Of course, is a seasoned lawyer, and now that the legal matters have come, I will take his view on this. Right. Yes. So I mean, welcome back. The connection wasn't good, but we have you on the phone now. So the discussion is moved on. We are talking about recollation and the legality or otherwise of what is happening. Some declarations have been made. The EC says that those declarations were not made properly because they were made under duress or they were illegal. Does the EC have the power to determine that they were made under duress and that they were illegal once the declaration have been made, or we go by Article 99 of the Constitution, go to court for the court to decide whether those persons so declared were validly elected? What does the law really say in respect of that? Hello, Mr. Ansasari. Yes, I put a question. Did you hear me?
No, come again.
Yes, so we are dealing with the recollation now and the legality and otherwise of it, The EC has said that some declarations made were not proper, illegal, and so those persons declared cannot be the elected people, and so they have ordered a recollation. And we all thought that the position was that once a declaration is made, the aggrieved party will have to go to the High Court to vindicate its rights. So we're asking that, is the EC within the law to say that they have cancelled a certain declaration when Article 99 says that if a party feels aggrieved about a declaration, or it's the High Court that has jurisdiction to determine whether a person has been validly elected. Can the EC, say those declarations were wrong or illegal, or we have to go to the court for the court to make that determination?
Well, the legality will depend on who made a declaration.
How?
For the parliamentary, the returning officer is the one who declares the results at the constituency level. For the presidential, the returning officer is the chair of the EC.
Yeah, so we are dealing with parliamentary.
Yes, and therefore where the law was not followed or not complied with, then it will be rendered null and void. As to going to court, the internal mechanisms will have to be exhausted, before you can go to court. And therefore, it seems to me that the EC has some job to do. Right now, pink sheets are flying left and right, and we are told that some of the pink sheets are fake. Who determines whether a pink sheet is fake? It's the EC. Only the EC, can attest to
the genuineness.
Yes, to a sheet being fake or otherwise. So the authenticity issue is, within the exclusive preserve of the EC. But what is baffling me at the moment is the issue of what to do with the allegation that the NPP had printed 2 million fake, ballot papers to stop. And does it also follow that the NDC also printed some fake pink sheets? And where are the pink sheets? How do we, differentiate the fake ones from the genuine ones? Again, that must be the exclusive, responsibility of, the EC. So I think that the EC must be allowed to sort out, the issue of fakeness, within the millions of ballots, sheets that are being, tiptoed around for the time being. It is only after the EC has, put its house in order, and I think that the others might be allowed to go to court. When they go to court at this stage, are they going to, use the fake ones as evidence, or they are going to rely on what the EC has printed? So the EC has, to be given the opportunity to differentiate between the genuine ones and the fake ones.
I get a point, but
when they do that we can go to court at the High Court under Article 99.
Yes, I get that, but the internal processes, shouldn't that have been done before the declaration? So once the declaration is done, the die has been cast, and for EC to come back and say they are cancelling those declarations, I'm just wondering how it will be. Of course, the court should have enough resources to make a determination about the genuineness of the pink sheets or not, because the EC could be called in to come and assist the court to do that. Or?
Who made the declaration? Is it the candidate or the
EC, the returning officer?
He made the declaration.
Yes.
Was not the voice.
The returning officer. Yeah, the returning officer in all the cases we are hearing and dealing with made the declaration.
Some of the returning officers are saying that, for example, I think in Adwejiri, Akwetia, Mantiakwa, and in Kechiman also, that they were unsure, as to the accuracy and genuineness of the exercise. And this is why I think that the EC itself is now demanding that, we put our house in order. So my suggestion is that let us allow the law, to work. And where the candidates themselves, created a condition for the collation to be done, it should be swept aside and allow what the regulations have laid down as to, who has the requisite authority to make the declaration.
I see.
Is it the candidate? Is it the EC returning officer? Or this? And I'm happy that at least, as far as the presidential one is concerned, the controversy, is not as prominent as the
parliamentary.
The parliamentary one. And you see, I think the alacrity with which Dr. Baumia conceded has also, created this hullabaloo and confusion. What he did was timely, but you see, in our annals, it was too quick, and it left, it dampened the spirits of millions of the NPP supporters and sympathizers, and they left. And when they left, the NPP are now accusing the NDC that it was when their agents left that the NDC, saw the bottom. I don't believe that. I don't think that they should be entertained at all, to muddy the waters. The EC has done a good job for the first time. We have been quick, and we must accept, our fate and go back and reorganize instead of, saying this declaration was 40 or not. At 188 and 79. How many? I mean, we are left with 9 constituencies. What can the 9 do? We cannot, advance our thoughts, better than, what already is on the ground.
Very well.
Yes.
Very well. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, as always. Thanks so much for speaking to us on this. We appreciate it. All right. So we are on the home stretch. We're almost done. I just want us to transition to, just 1 minute on post-election violence. It's stopped now. And then the issue about the recruitment. I think it's a straightforward matter. Since you are on the transition, let me start off with you. Just a very brief one.
Yeah, so maybe, Selorm, let me just end on the note of the EC that, look, we are not surprised that this Electoral Commission is going to go down in history as the worst, under Madam Jane Mensah. Look, I speak to officers across the country, and I'm told that she has not even on one occasion visited, district offices across the country. So she has no idea how, the offices and the officers around the country are faring. The apathy and despondency within the Electoral Commission, it's so high as a result of her very incompetent and poor leadership of the institution. She's running the place like perhaps she used to do at the IEA with one office here in Accra, and she should not damage it more than she already has damaged the institution. I, however, just want to reiterate a point I made about the recruitments that's ongoing within this transition period. I said it earlier on behalf of the transition team that many of the happenings around in many of our institutions will be reviewed. I mean, it's only natural that they are reviewed on case-by-case basis. It is not to say that the Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's government has come to an end. They still have about a month, give and take, to go, less than that. And the authority of state is still with them to do what they think is best for this country. And if that includes payments, and if that includes recruitment, it is still within their right to do that. But in the spirit of morality, in the spirit of good governance, in the spirit of transparency, it is only fair that the new government is also allowed the right, to review some of the decisions that will be taken around this time. And that is why, in that same spirit, at the first meeting of the transition team, the joint transition team, it was agreed that some of these decisions will be brought before the transition team for advice before action is taken. And so...
Yeah, but I think the governing side quite disagreed with that wasn't really the position. They said some things will be looked at, but not to be brought to the transition for approval, more or less.
No, I didn't say approval. I said that it will be brought to the attention of the joint committee. And where there is a need for advice to be given, that's why you even have the council the council,
the speakers.
That is part of this transition team. So you are told that where there are disagreements, between the joint transition teams on a matter, it goes to the council, and the advice of the council becomes binding. And so there was an agreement that some of these things will be brought to the attention of the transition team, not necessarily for approval, but it will be brought to their attention. And once it is brought to their attention, they will have an opinion. And if the opinion is aligned with the decision that the government wants to take, then you will have no issues. But where there are disagreements, you can bet that it will be escalated to the council level, and the advice of the council perhaps will be binding. But even that, the president has executive authority, and so he can still override whatever the council advises if it is not in sync with what he wants to do. But then you should not also ignore the fact that the incoming president will also have the same executive power to reverse whatever the president is doing. So because you do not want to create a situation where decisions are made and reversed within a few weeks' time, it is better that you are transparent. It is better that you build consensus on them. It is better that you discuss them with open-mindedness and with fairness, and then the decision is accepted by all. So I do not think that the new government will be seeking to frustrate the last few days of this administration. But all we require is transparency. All we require is fairness. All we require is collaboration and cooperation. And I'm sure once that is done, it will make the new government take over much easier, and we will not have situations of unnecessary witch hunting. But let me assure the people of Ghana that where there are witches, they will be hunted. I mean, that is why we have the Operation Oral. I mean, Operation Retrieve All Loot. And many of us are of the view, Selorm, that we are at a crossroad in this country as far as our democracy is concerned. I mean, the confidence level in politicians in Ghana keep dropping, and it is only, you know, how we are able to ensure that we hold people accountable in this administration. I am sure that it is that which will restore the confidence to some extent in politicians. And so we do not take oral lightly at all. We think that oral is at the core of the survival of our democracy. We think that it has to be done to restore some level of confidence and hope in the Ghanaian, that people will not just loot and abuse state powers and go unpunished. There must be accountability at some point. And so even though we are seeking collaboration, cooperation, and transparency to ensure that people are not unnecessarily witch hunted, the principle must be clear that if they are witches, they will be hunted.
Very well. Final words on all of this.
I'm not happy about the wizards not being mentioned.
Because there are a lot of them. I agree with you.
Yeah, saying witches alone, but that wizards.
Well, I was using that.
We need to be gender balanced. You know, the transition team MPP did well. We have, I think, more women than the NDC. Anyways, I think that in concluding, I would only plead that both parties act well and do right by the people, in the sense that it's not easy to let power go. And though we've lost the election, I know it's a painful transition period for handing over executive power to another party. But I think both parties committed to one thing, to do it with respect. I believe that, for instance, all the nurses who are now getting enrollment are not necessarily MPP or NDC. They are Ghanaians, and they are going to be attending to Ghanaian patients. You know, likewise, those in the security services will be attending to Ghanaians. And I think that two wrongs might not necessarily make it right. I was watching Kwachi speak about the fact that Safuma Afu made some damning statements during the last transition. If it was wrong then, it is wrong today. Now. And I would hope that the NDC will pay particular attention to the fact that some things that we did, which some of us thought were wrong, has bitten us, and they should learn from that. And should they repeat what was wrong when we transitioned from the NDC in 2016 to the MPP? If it was wrong then,
it's wrong today.
It's wrong today, and I would hold them to that high level, standard, quote unquote, of accountability to do the things right during the transition.
So that's why I make the clarification that the issues will be discussed and determined on case-by-case basis. It is not a blanket, you know, position.
Very well.
Everything done will be reversed.
But I want an appointment.
Let me take a final word from Franklin. Franklin, you have a few seconds just to wrap everything up for us. Hello, Franklin.
I think he's.
I think Franklin.
So I have extra minutes.
So I mean, so that's it.
I need to put in this. Merry Christmas to the entire country.
Okay.
Whether down or not, I think the MPP still stands tall. We have the men. We still have the men. And we will shepherd the ship to the shore. You know, we may be down but not out.
Are you repeating, Doctor?
We may be down but not out. I'm you know.
Very well.
So we're still there. We're still there for them.
Are you repeating?
Thanks so much.
We are still there for them. We're coming back.
So that's been our show for today. My guests, Alasan Suini, Dr. Dixon Adomako Kisi, Franklin Kuju, you heard Kweku Ansasari. My name is Selorm Adonoo. Thanks so much for doing the viewing and the listening. Have a good afternoon.